Hello there everyone, welcome to r/entitledpeople, where we read stories from other people's lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them, and how they should get what they want. If you enjoy, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and share this around if you want. If this does well, I'll definitely make more. Now let's get started, shall we? My friend borrowed my dress, spilled wine on it, and said I shouldn't care because
I don't even wear it that much.
I let her borrow one of my favorite dresses for a party. I don't lend clothes often, but she begged me and said she'd be careful. She returned it days later with a huge red wine stain and a casual,
"Oops, these things happen."
There was no apology, no offer to clean or replace it, and when I asked if she could at least cover the dry cleaning, she laughed and said,
"Girl, it's not that serious. You don't even wear it that much anyway."
I was speechless. It's not about how often I wear it, it's about basic respect. I trusted her with something I valued, and she acted like it was disposable. That dress may not have cost a fortune, but her attitude cost a lot more. Lady wants to place an order at a closing store. I was the manager at a corporate-run Sears home store many years ago. The franchise had returned it to Sears and it was listed for sale. Corporate was then restructured and the store was to be closed. We were running closing sales on existing inventory. All new customer orders were referred to full-size stores. A lady comes in and wants to place an order. She's informed that the store is closing. Look at all those signs! And those systems are turned off. She's welcome to order online and pick up at another store. She tried to argue with my sales guy that
she's always ordered this way and we must take her order.
Finally, we hear the retail ultimate threat.
"I'm never shopping here again."
And the sales guy said, "You can't. The store is closing and out of business. That's kinda why we can't sell things to you." Cut to the shocked Pikachu face before she stomps her little entitled ass out of the store. The guy who publicly threatened to sexually assault me without my consent is crying about me documenting the abuse. I was very publicly verbally battered for naughties by a mentally unwell forever alone for 5 years. As recently as a few months ago, I have begged him to stop, sent him a cease and desist, and had to send a cease and desist to multiple third parties, and he's refused to stop at every turn. Because he has this false sense of entitlement to harass, slander, and bully me. Because he's mad I rejected his offer for dates and so on. It's been 5 friggin' years. This is ridiculous that he's still doing this. I had to take out a restraining order because he ignored the cease and desist and got other parties to do the same. I told them all to stop politely for years before I used the courts. I have called the police. I have asked for welfare check to see if they can get the stalker some crisis resources instead of him bothering me. I was more than kind, kinder than this violently hateful neckbeard deserved. Particularly considering he knows I'm married and have been with my spouse for many years. And he still lied about being with me to lash out and be petty and disrespectful towards my loved ones. I told the stalker to stop and again he refused because he's obsessed with online red pill gurus who tell him lies about how women don't take their relationships seriously or respect men anymore, and the stalker eats it up. He loves having his degenerate wife beaters lie to him. That's embarrassing, but more importantly, the stalker needs to keep his ideological extremism to himself. I've been through hell by this creeper, and I'm still not cheating, nor interested in cheating on my friggin' spouse. I don't know what kind of woman this asshole has been hanging around, if any, but my mother's married early and stayed married. My parents are together and have been married for over 30 years, and I was engaged and married early and I'm staying there. So now the stalker has gotten a slap on the wrist and he's crying victim at me, talking about my thoughts and feelings here online. The stalker isn't being doxxed. I'm not making violent threats against stalker or to physically harm him, and I'm not making threats of the naughty kind. which is more decorum and kindness than the stalker displayed towards me. The stalker has a restraining order against him and doesn't have the ability, nor the right, as in I'm not allowing it, to threaten, bully, and or force me into not being honest about what I've been put through. I'm not the one in trouble. Stalker is in trouble with the courts. So this dialogue he's attempting to have with me about not liking what I have to say is not going to fly. Entitled landlord forged my husband's signature on a contract. Posting mainly to vent before I lose my marbles completely. For a while now, we've been having a dispute concerning several things wrong with our place, and he either refuses to do anything, or says he'll do something and then is too lazy or greedy to follow through. Last January, a new dispute began. Nearly annually, we've had a maintenance guy come over to perform maintenance on the heating unit. This was a major nuisance to us because without prior warning, there would be a guy at our door calling my husband, and either him or me had to drop whatever we were doing and come home so the maintenance can be done. Later we found out this was because the company the maintenance guy works for would call the landlord to make an appointment, and the landlord would just pick the first possible option instead of coordinating the date with us, but I digress. The real trouble started when we got the bill for the maintenance. In our country, the landlord and tenant have to have agreements on who pays for what. Our landlord didn't talk to us about this, didn't mention anything or whatever. He just gave the maintenance company our info and they sent us the bill. This didn't sit right with me at all, but my husband didn't want any trouble with anyone, so he paid the bill, which wasn't small. Unfortunately, due to difficult personal circumstances, this happened 3 times in total. The third time was last January. My husband paid the bill again, but I decided enough is enough. So I started messaging the landlord asking him to pay us back for all of the bills. I also spoke to a lawyer. All in all, she said it's unlawful, and he has no agreements with us and still makes us pay the bill. In the meantime, the landlord came to my husband's workplace during work hours to quote-unquote talk. In other words, he came to rant and yell at my husband. In his unhinged ranting and yelling, which my brilliant husband recorded, the landlord said, "If a lawyer says so, then he'll pay us back." Well, ask, and you shall receive, Mr. Landlord. I contacted the lawyer again, and she sent him a demand letter and gave him a week to pay us back. And did he pay us back? Of course not! After weeks of back and forth over email, and me calling him out on lies and inconsistencies, and at this point demanding payment, last week he tells me he has no obligation to pay us back because my husband signed a contract with the aforementioned maintenance company. He also said we can ask them to send us that contract. The husband and I talked about this and came to the conclusion that it's unlikely as neither of us remembers any contract, let alone have a copy. The next day my company calls the company. Let me rephrase that, I said that wrong. My husband calls the company to ask for the contract. Long story short, they told him they don't have any contract with us personally. They only have a contract with the landlord, which obligates them to perform maintenance on heating units in all of his properties. He should have given us a subcontract that he'd have to make himself, which means the company wouldn't have it anyways. I sent the landlord an email telling him they don't have any contracts with us, and once again demanding payment. This was Friday last week. This past Monday, the landlord answered my email. It briefly said the maintenance contract that was attached. Huh, how weird. I open the attachment and I see a contract alright. First thing I see is the maintenance company logo. Mind you, a few days earlier, that same company told my husband they don't have any contracts with him. Second thing I see is the opening paragraph of the contract being addressed as directly to my husband. I scrolled down to the page and thought, nah, that's not how my husband's name writes. And there was a written date and a signature. The handwriting was obviously not my husband's, and the signature looked to be similar to his, but not his. I thought it looked very awkward. It didn't have the same flow as my husband's handwriting has, if that makes sense. At the time, I wasn't 100% sure though. When my husband got home from work, I showed him the contract. He immediately said that's not his signature. He grabbed some other documents he signed before to compare. He wrote down his signature on a blank piece of paper to show me how he signs. And clear as day, the signature was forged. Then we looked closer at the contract. We could see that the opening paragraph that addressed my husband personally was in a slightly different font than the rest. Then it occurred to us that this contract only applies for one particular year, 2023. Okay, so this contract is only valid in 2023, and when signed by the customer, the company is obligated to perform maintenance within that same year. Then why did no one perform any maintenance on our heating unit in 2023? Spoiler warning, because the contract is fake. That's why. We were dumbstruck, furious, and frankly tired of this BS. We started Googling what to do in this situation. The most consistent answer was to file an official police report. The police will investigate and take necessary measures. So we call the police and we have an appointment tomorrow. I'm going to bed now. This turned out way longer than I expected, but it feels good to get it out. If you read this far, thank you. If anyone's interested in an update, let me know. Shane Lizard out. ETA, I have more insane stories about this landlord. I'm willing to share if anyone's interested. And narrator's note, I, indeed, am very interested in these stories. Anyway, that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed today's stories, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and maybe share this around. If you don't know what to comment, a few emojis will do just fine. I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.